Welcome to Broadlines, where real headlines meet real conversations.
Today we're talking about work besties.
We are getting right into it. I'm Natalie Lizarraga, a former news anchor, and my co-host here, Rae.
Yeah, I'm Rae Williams, also a reporter, been in the news for a while. So yeah, we're breaking down the headlines for you to how they affect women.
So today we're talking about work besties. Hopefully you have one.
Least.
We're learning that a lot of people don't have work besties, which really surprised me.
What is a work bestie? Like, that was my question first. It's like, what do you consider a work bestie?
Well, when we look at the data, there was a Gallup poll that came out when it talks about people in the workplace and their relationships amongst each other. And it said that work besties, after all of this research, they don't really make us our work days better. They actually make us better at work, which would make sense. If you have a good relationships, you're kind of more likely to stay where you are, be happier to go in every single day.
I mean, it's always nice if you see someone you actually like
No,
in place that you have to go to every day. But that same Gallup poll actually found, and what you mentioned earlier, is that only 2 out of 10 U.S. employees
That's crazy.
have work besties. Y'all don't have friends at work?
I feel like I have a lot of work besties, making up for the people who just didn't take that opportunity to have them, because I'm definitely more than 2 out of 10. 83% of professionals say that workplace friendships help them feel more engaged. 81% also reported that they have higher job satisfaction. So when you look at the big numbers, especially from that Gallup poll, you realize that it's like an important thing of your everyday life. 5 out of your 7 days, sometimes more, you have to be around these people.
I know. So it's nice to like them. Do you take your work besties outside of work?
I think we'll get to that in this episode a little later, because I have mixed feelings on that.
Okay. All right.
And I know that's a lot of people like social gatherings with work people isn't their bag. Sometimes that is me.
I'm the opposite.
Yeah, I could probably tell that.
I love the work besties, but how do we become work besties? Like, have you had anyone in the workplace? Like, how do you get them? How do you get there?
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you the same question. Do you have when we talk about this episode, I have a handful of people that I would like to dedicate this to. Shout out to Jaleesa and Rachel. Those are 2 of my really good work besties.
Alicia, Simone.
They've made the experience of going to work just a lot better for regular. I mean, we can get into the deep of it, like psychological reasoning. You're just happier to go to work when you know your homie's there. I mean, you also build a sense of motivation when the 2 of you are in the same boat. One of the work besties that I had, we were actually just kind of in this little group, and one of them was called the coffee train. And one of the anchors at work would ask just a few of us when he was at Starbucks in the morning what we wanted. And I remember seeing it with 2 other coworkers, and I was like, oh, that's so nice. And then him and I became friends, and I got the group text, and I was like, I've made it to the coffee train. And it was just the best thing, because it did make you feel like, oh, we're all in this together. Everybody's struggling. And to have someone bring not the work coffee into work was phenomenal. And it was once a week. So once you got the text at 6:30 in the morning, I was like, praise be.
That's always so nice to feel like you're part of that little someone's circle of coffee, food.
Yeah. It was sad when he retired, because then so did the coffee train.
Oh,
I haven't had coffee since. No, just kidding.
I'm pretty sure you've had coffee.
So much caffeine. When we talk about finding a work bestie, let's say you get to your new job and you're looking around. It's kind of like the first day of school, right? You're like, who am I going to connect with here? And sometimes it takes a little longer because you are working. So you're kind of diving in. And there's different things that you look for in your work bestie, which you would probably look for in a friend. We always say how hard it is as an adult to make friends. And sometimes you're just subject to the pool of people that are at your workplace.
Yeah. One of the things that I saw was from the Association for Psychological Science, says that shared pain actually increases bonding and cooperation.
Trauma
so
bonding.
It's literally, well, actually, let me make a differentiation. One thing worth noting is that a lot of people say trauma bonding thinking that, it's one thing. And trauma bonding actually has a clinical meaning. I was really curious, so I looked it up. And that's bonding to a harmful person or situation. So what most people mean here is bonding through shared stress. So maybe there's, somebody you both don't prefer, that you bond over, or maybe there's a situation that you both are a little bit uncomfortable with that you bond over. So that kind of stress. And I think that's one premier way that people meet their friends at work and kind of get along with them.
I feel like Rae is just trying to say we like the tea, and that's the technical way that
a little bit.
The core of that bond is scientific, but we just like to talk about work. And I think one of those things that's so important is having a work bestie gets rid of like the backstories. I don't know if you've ever had a really hard day at work and you go home to your significant other or your parents or siblings, besties, whatever, and you have to do a whole backstory before you even get to the problem.
Yeah.
So having someone who just straight gets it makes your life easier.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds like it's not that big a deal, but it really is so much easier to know that someone just gets it and you can vent freely without having to be like, okay, so Sarah did this and then, okay, no, that's this supervisor. Yeah. So it just makes it easier, which is like a really good psychological benefit to your life of being like, it's just a lot to unload, but you don't have to worry that this person is either going to be judgy. Like they understand what's happening in whatever place.
You.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Work bestie that I had, we were both women of color working in a very Caucasian workplace.
Okay.
And we immediately caught eyes and were like, okay,
hey girl,
we got this. And after that, we saw each other every single day and just, you know, you add little tidbits of your life, your weekend. You're always feeling it out because I think, like you mentioned, the goal is to take this person outside of the workplace and be a real ride or die. So we slowly just kind of got to know each other and we're like, our lives are a lot of the same things by just shared stories and how well we work together. And so she's been in my life for, shout out to Milena, for like 20 years.
That's a good work bestie.
Her daughter now watches my daughter, and her daughter was definitely in junior high when I met her.
Oh, that's nice.
So that is got taken out of the office and is now like a real life friend.
Which I love. My same friend, she had one kid when I met her, and like I got to see her through the second pregnancy, which was like nice. At that point, we had both like left the company, but we definitely stayed in touch, and she's still one of my closest friends.
I think another important thing is like these can be different genders. It doesn't matter. We do have like levels of like work mom, work auntie, but the work friend is like, you know, obviously what we're talking about here. One of the things I thought that was really cool that I read in a lot of articles that people had researched, like the work bestie actually gives you like a competitive edge.
Really?
Because that person's going to hype you up if you're like, hey, look, I'm looking for more money, like go in there and ask.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I need help on this project. You have more of an edge with another brain obviously working. So they could like be your biggest asset in the workplace.
And I know for me, one of my work besties has definitely just had my back when I've screwed up. I woke up late for a live hit. So we're both reporters. Sometimes you have these crazy 4 a.m. wake ups, and I just slept through my alarm. And she calls me, and it was like the calmest voice. She's like, hey, are you coming in? And I was like, oh my God.
That call is nerve-wracking.
Listen, but the way she was, and she's got 4 kids. So she gave me like the mom voice. She was like, no, it's fine. We're just and she fixed the show. She covered for me. She made sure that, and when I walked in, there was no like, oh my God, girl, you like, no panic. She was just like, okay, cool. Just go powder your face and like, I'll meet you in there. But she had my back in a time where like that, you know, those situations get like crazy, and it's like, it's live. So,
you know, that could have gone a different way for you depending on the person that was there. But like, she knows you. I think the work asset too is like, you never know. It might not be your work bestie at this place where you're working currently forever, but let's say someone goes somewhere else and you're looking for a job.
Yeah.
That person is more likely to say, hey, I know a girl like that is great at this, and you could be employed by someone else just because you had such a good relationship with someone. Have you ever like gotten a job because of a work bestie recommendation?
It actually just happened to me 2 weeks ago, and I wouldn't even say this person was like necessarily a work bestie. She's someone that I made a connection with as I was reporting, and I reached out to a very big, huge company for a statement, and I'm like, I'm never going to get the statement in time for this story. And she sent me a text message and said, I just saw your email. She just moved jobs. She's like, I just saw your email. I work for this company out. I'm going to make sure it's expedited. And so it wasn't necessarily a situation where she got me a job, but like she got me exactly what I needed in like 5 seconds. And they were like, how did you get this statement so fast? I was like, I got my girl on the other side. So that's always nice. And I saw the statistic, this is in the Harvard Business Review, that the highest performing teams share psychological safety. So I love that. If you feel safe with someone, if you feel like they have your back, if you feel like they're going to look out for you, it just makes for better teamwork, which makes sense. You know, it makes for better teamwork. And that coworker support is actually associated with better work-life outcomes and lower burnout. And that's from a study in Frontiers in Psychology. So all around, just having that person, whether it's in another job that's going to have your back or in the current job to have your back, like better teamwork, psychological safety, which you need at work.
Yeah, I think the overall is like, okay, these are great relationships. It's the Gallup poll. 87% of employees agree they're very important. But that's when it comes down to that only 20% of those employees actually have one. So I think we need to kind of break down how to get one.
How do you get a work best? What is the formula for a work bestie?
Yeah, if you're part of this number that doesn't have one, 2 out of 10, there's a lot of people that might need a little nudging on how to get a work bestie, because obviously through this research it is beneficial to your work environment and to your life in general.
Well, I think one of the things too is that, like, especially in 2020, there was a lot of virtual work happening.
Yeah, that's a fact.
And so that kind of made it hard. I'll never forget, I started at a new company in January of 2020 and like just had enough time to make like a few friends before we like went completely virtual.
It's like another world.
Yeah. And then my first day of work, I dropped a glass in my kitchen and I had to go into my first day with a big slash across my wrist, like blood dripping out, glass still in there. That's how I made my first friend.
It's a conversation starter.
She picked the glass out of my hand. She saw me in the bathroom like trying to get it out. She's like, do you need help? And so that's a person that I, like bonded with most while I was at home, because she's one of the few people I had like an experience with. But I think that's maybe one of the things that like has deterred people from, or not deterred, but like stopped people from having these work besties, is like, how do you do that while you're virtual?
Yeah. Well, I think there's like certain things. Be authentic, obviously. Don't just be yourself. That should be like ground level for almost every friendship, I think, is to be yourself. And if you're doing video calls, if you have a dog, maybe that's okay. The dog's on your lap, or if they hear the dog or the baby, that can start conversations with people. I think too, like there's a little bit of time when you're logging in before meetings to not just sit in silence.
Right.
To tell people, hey, what's up? How was your weekend? Like, I'm working on this or that. Like, I think before the actual meeting gets started, revel in those 5 or 10 minutes before. I mean, don't get there so early. Try hard, but like,
don't be that girl. No, I'm kidding.
Fashionably late or on time.
How do you feel about like employee resource groups? Because I was seeing that that's one of the ways that people tend to join in. I know some people get nervous. Like, how do you feel about employee? No, you don't like them?
I'm sorry. I cannot stand those things. I'm one of those people. I'm like, feel like I'm letting a really bad, like big weight off my shoulders, because when you're in those companies, you have to be like, yeah, my God, I joined this group, or
this
I'm
is
in
so
like,
interesting to me.
No, I loathe them.
I am the opposite. I'm like, let's make cookies. I'll bring them in. Let's do our little like, like little projects on the side, and our little like what I personally love those things.
It makes me cringe.
Okay, so if you are an ERG person, ERG is the employee resource group. So like, they'll have like, like ones for like maybe Black women, women of color, or, LGBTQ plus, like, different groups. And you might find people that are similar to you based on like whatever designation it is. They also have like people who like to run marathons. I'm not joining that one.
See, it gets too crazy. It's like people who like pink polish. We have a group. People who like I can't.
Be in the pink polish group.
Come on, there are so many that it's really, sometimes I think it's an actual distraction from like the time I could be making friends naturally. It just feels forced to me. I felt like I couldn't say that before this. This is a very freeing moment for me, because in big corporate America, I kind of had to just act like they were the jam. And sometimes I feel like I would get more work done outside of that. It was kind of a productivity thing. And I know that for a CEO of companies or people doing HR, they feel like it is more productive and it's true. Like you have a better work day, but sometimes they seemed wildly distracting.
I mean, I can understand, because there are times at work where I have to like go hide in a corner, because I'll just yap. Like, so I have to literally go around the corner, and people are genuinely surprised. Yeah, they're genuinely surprised. They're like, why are you over here? Do you hate us? And I'm like, no, I just have to work today. And they will leave me alone. But
that's so funny, because no one ever had to question that. I would just always be by myself. They're not like, do you not like us? They're like, we know you don't.
One of the APs, like associate producers, came to me and was literally like, are you okay? I was like, I'm fine. But I mean, whether you like them or not, I think you'll find your people.
I agree with that.
In the group or outside of the group. There's got to be somebody else that also doesn't want to be in the group.
Yes.
And I think that could be your person too.
I agree with that. The other thing that is highly debatable, and we did talk about, these are inside the workplace friendships. Do you take them out to the streets? Are you going to happy hour?
So I personally do like to translate my work friendships to outside.
Shocker.
But here's shock. She said no one.
The social butterfly likes to go out.
But what burned me one time, and this is for all the other social butterflies, is know that there are people who don't like to do that. And even though they will go outside with you, they're still going outside with you as their coworker. So like we went to a comedy show, and bless her heart, I still consider her a friend. We went to this comedy show.
It's kind of a wild one because you don't know what the show's going to be about.
I know. But we were having a good time. We'd gone somewhere before, and we kind of like she looked over, she saw a friend of hers, and she was just like, "Oh yeah, these are my coworkers." And I was like,
oh, she didn't hate you with "this is my friend"?
yeah.
She's got a point, though. You are her coworker.
I mean, I know, but like at the point at which we're outside, like I thought we were friends.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
You were like, oh, I thought this was it.
right. But that was like
You got burned.
It was, I'm not gonna, I was a little butthurt. I'm not gonna lie. But that was a moment for me where I realized that just because that doesn't mean that she hates me. Like, she doesn't mean that she's not
true.
my friend. It's just that she considers this like a different type of
She
relationship.
hit you with the C word.
Right.
Damn.
C word.
She was like, you're a co. You were like,
Coworker.
hi, nice to be. And she's like, this is my coworker.
And I said it to my other friend. I was like, did you hear her introduce us as coworkers?
Did she even think anything about? I wouldn't have thought anything about that.
She
I would
said
have been like,
she
yeah, we were
clocked
together.
it, but she didn't feel the way that I feel. And I think, again, that's because like I take my coworkers to the streets and it turns them into friends.
Well, it is like maybe that was her subtle boundary setting.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm not about to tell you all the tea. These
Yeah.
are my coworkers.
And that's an important thing too, is that even when people are your friends at work, it is important for you to set boundaries and not make it either like 100% like venting all the time, or not make it like, until your trust is proven, like, kind of keep it natural, I guess. I'm not good at that.
I think we also need to talk about like what you're looking for in your work bestie. Is that the same as your out in real life friend? Like, I feel like there's actually higher standards for a work bestie because you are trusting them with a lot of stuff. You need to make sure if you are venting that's not going back to someone.
Yeah. And that's definitely happened to me. That's definitely happened to me. I've had situations where like someone, and they've come to me and like gotten the information and then reported me to HR.
Oh my, that's a big deal.
And yet here I am still trusting. No, I'm kidding. But no, but I think again, it's like you have to decide what your boundaries are and you have to stick to them. And if you are a social butterfly and that's where you're making your friends, just know that not everybody, it's like same thing. Not everybody
Girl,
like feels the
I know
same
that.
way.
I've had some work besties that you thought were besties and the same thing. I've done some HR reporting and you're like,
Don't be a snake,
I thought we
guys.
were all at the same table having the same conversation.
Well, the Journal of Business Ethics actually says that workplace friendships improve satisfaction, but can also increase role conflict and stress when those boundaries blur. So if you don't have those boundaries in the workplace with these friends, like it can go south really quickly.
Yeah.
And HR report, like we're never going to be friends again. Like you report me to HR, like I.
Oh man,
like,
I
every
had
time
that
see you,
happen
like,
to me and I thought we were really good friends and the story is like really sordid and not great. But I remember being like, this seems too much. Like it was just like, this seems like across boundaries. And as it was like kind of a joke, I won't get into specifics, but I had to go to HR. And this was like someone that I
you
like.
went to HR.
Yeah. And
Oh.
I was like, I know after this, it's not going to be the same because their thing was like, do you want us to say something? Or you like, what's the point of telling us if we're not going to change the behavior?
Yeah.
I think as women too, you're like, you don't want to be, you've been taught for so long, like, don't cause trouble. That I was like, well, no, it's fine. And then my husband was like, yo, that was wildly inappropriate.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you're right. And so I was like, yeah, talk to him. So I did. And I just knew, I was like, the L you're going to take is you guys aren't going to be as close.
Yeah.
And it was so different. It was like, hello, how are you? Here is your mic. Like, it was just like very weird. And I had to say, like, it's not my fault you crossed the line. That's something I have to like report. So I don't know. Can get dicey and you have to see these people every day.
Yeah, and that's the problem. I think that's why a lot of people are afraid to speak up because even the person that reported me to HR after like asking me my business, I was like, you asked me my business. There were several things that I had kind of let slide because I thought we were friends that at the point at which I now have to be in HR explaining myself, I'm like, well, this is what she did. And I'm just like, airing all of that. And I think if we had better boundaries and I've had, kind of been a little bit more aware that like some people don't treat the friendships the same, we could have gone differently. How do you feel about workplace gossip?
Well, I mean, I love it, but I understand though, especially working. I had a very toxic workplace where everybody was talking about each other, and it used to be like cute and fun until I realized that like mean things were being said about people and like no fact checking
No
being
fact checking.
done.
Please check the facts.
And it was like too much that I realized like there are certain workplaces where you just need to be like, I don't do that.
Yeah.
And like maybe that's what you bring home and talk about it with someone else, because like I said, there's qualities that you need. Trustworthiness is one of them, and transparency, non-judgmental, these are like things that in a workplace go a long way, because if you're telling the wrong person, a lot of things can fall out from under you.
Yeah. Interestingly, contrary to my personality and what you would think, first of all, I love people's business. When I first started with my therapist, I was like, one thing you cannot try to change about me is that I love people's business. I love the gossip, but I don't ever repeat it. Like, which you would think, like, I love yapping, so I would. But listen, everybody at work will come to me about the things and about the people, and I'm just sitting there like, like, but I don't.
Yeah, but you're a vault.
Don't tell anybody. I am a vault.
That's good.
And even people like will tell me things that I already know that like have come out like 3 weeks later, and I've like known for 3 weeks, like, you know, someone gets fired, and I'm like, I knew this.
Let me ask you this. Do you think you can tell the level of toxicity in a workplace based on the level of gossip?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I feel like if there's a big rumor mill going on,
Yeah.
you might want to quit.
Yeah. And like, especially as when you start a job, like when you walk in, I think like, and then you start hearing the gossip like the second you get there. Like I've had that, and I'm off the bat, I'm like, wow. Like,
yeah, the toxicity meter goes like way high. And I wish I knew that from previous jobs, because at first it was like, oh, whoa, everyone's talking to you about who's doing what. And then you're like, wait a minute.
Everybody's talking to me
This
about
place
who's doing
ain't right.
what.
Yeah.
The U.S. Chamber of Commerce actually says that workplace gossip is a leading contributor to broken trust and damaged professional relationships, which is not a surprise because you're talking smack all the time. And then the Academy of Management says that changes in power and status are among the most common reasons that workplace friendships dissolve. Because if you can imagine, like, I'm gossiping to you, we're both reporters together, and I'm gossiping to you.
I don't want to be part of that.
No, but then maybe you get promoted to anchor, and you think to yourself, okay, like I need to kind of like, dial it back, and I still want to come and gossip to you, and our power levels have changed, or our structure has changed. Obviously that could contribute to like a damage in friendship. So like that is one of the gossip is actually one of the reasons, and like changes in power status is one of the reasons that
it's just so difficult and so hard not to sip the tea when you're at work.
I love the tea.
Same.
I think just hear the tea. Don't serve
unless
the
it's
tea.
about me. Have you ever heard rumors about yourself?
Oh, 100%. And I'm like, this is cute. I think they're cute.
Oh my gosh. That's something that like reminds me of, it makes me think of why a work bestie is important in those moments, because you could literally lose it and be like, what is happening? But having someone to go to, and also like having an edge when it comes to working with people to have your back. Even if you only have one, you need someone at your office that like you can be real with.
Well, for me, sometimes too, it's like there's the work auntie. That's what I call them. Some people
Yeah,
say
there's
work
like
mom.
levels to this shit.
Yeah, there's like
say.
levels. Like I think bestie's more your level, but like the work mom or the work auntie, I always say auntie. And my dad is always telling me, well, if I have a situation at work, like, did you ask your work auntie about this? Like, I think every single workplace I've gone to, I have like a work auntie, even if they don't know. And I think it's different from like a typical mentor relationship where you're like relying on them to like, lead you and guide you. There's like an aspect of the, you can tell them the stuff that's going around the office. You can ask them little questions. They'll give you some insight, but they're also like still guiding you in like a positive way. And I saw a statistic that said studies on mentoring women, this is from PubMed, show increased retention and greater success obtaining promotions. And I can get that, because I feel like any of my work aunties, if there was room for them to talk about me and say, like, because at this point they know my character, and say, hey, you should let, and I think they all have, Rae should do this, or you should let Rae do that. And they probably have an ear to the higher ups, because they are higher up.
Yeah, they are higher
It's usually someone like higher than you. But I love my work aunties.
Yeah, work moms, work dads. I've had a work dad for like my whole life.
Had a work dad.
Yeah, I've had a work dad.
So my dad would get very upset. He's like, you don't even have any other dads.
Yeah. I think it's super important. I think at the end of the day, we're learning that establishing friendships, like there was a Harvard study that's like the longest established study when it comes to like happiness, is consistent with having good, strong relationships. So why not have them at the place that you spend most of your time?
Yeah. Do you feel like it's ever hard because of the competition in the workplace? Because I know for us as news anchors, news reporters, I've had other friends who are like doctors that have said this, like that it's such a competitive space.
Yeah.
That, like, you know, everybody likes to be like, there's lots of seats at the table. And I'm like, actually, there are only 3. So what are you talking about? Have you ever felt that?
I find myself being like a spotter of the fake. So my work besties weren't necessarily other people on television.
Okay.
So I found those to be not as deep as the average, everyday, relatable person at work. So if I spot a fake, I probably am not going to dive in with you. And I think the competition thing is what holds me back, because I don't want to share any work gossip or tea with you, because I feel like other people use it as an edge to be like, oh, well, she stinks at this, or like, I can get ahead because I know this information. That is scary to me. When like maybe your director or producer is like, I don't care, she works here, and that's like, you know, there's no like, they're not trying to use it to get ahead. And I think you have to really spot that. In our business specifically, it could be obviously across the board, that if you share something that you think you don't trust someone, that's like a huge. So I was always kind of like not in the like cutesy anchor circle.
Yeah. I think, I don't know, I've been pretty confident in that. I know I have skill sets that not a lot of people have. And I don't mean this from a place, I feel like sometimes when we talk about ourselves like that, people are like, oh, she's cocky.
Do it.
No, I feel like I have a skill set that I like. And I know at the places that I suck and other people are better. And I feel like I tend to naturally let those people who are better at things do things, and then, you know, shine where I shine. So I've never been really shy about, you know, like kind of talking about myself or saying like what I'm good at or what I'm working on. I've only ever had someone like steal an opportunity from me once. But I will tell you, the other day I was going to a brunch, and it was all of the, or like a lot of the Black women reporters in Los Angeles. And like when I got the invitation, I was super excited because I've seen a lot of these women on TV. They're all gorgeous. They're all really talented. They're all like super, you know, but there's only like 5 stations here, and there's only like 5 jobs. So then in the back of my mind, I was like, is this going to be just like us sizing each other up? Like, is this going to be us just like, you know, seeing like where I can get in, who's leaving, so I can
that's
apply
a very
for the
valid,
job,
anxious feeling to have before entering that space.
And I felt that, and I was like, but I want to be friends with some of these women because they're awesome. And I will tell you the outcome of that. I was very pleasantly surprised, because I think everybody was just rooted in the fact that this is such a hard job, and this is we're so underrepresented in this job, that it really felt like everyone was just there to validate and support each other and genuinely be there. I did not feel like an inch of competition, which I feel like is very rare, because I feel like we individually probably feel that in our jobs, like in our different stations. But I feel like there's several of these women that I was like, wow, I really want to get to know this person more, like maybe one-on-one or something like that. But that was a pleasant, you know, surprise for me, because I think that there is that competition that prevents people from, you know, from being friends like that.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so my last thing for you when it comes to a work bestie, what do you think the best way a company can help kind of get that going for people that is not
an employee resource group?
Correct. That is not a forced group that you have to join.
That's an interesting question, because I mean, I think the employee resource groups are their attempt to do that. But I think having more spaces where people can actually just naturally meet, because I feel like in some companies when you have meetings, like there's no room, like say we have like our, you know, normal meeting, there's no room for you to not be business like and not just like do that. And even if it's just like bring a snack, because then somebody's going to say to me, have you tried the strawberries?
Yo,
and
you
like,
took
oh my God,
mine.
your shoes are cute.
Food is like the way to get people talking.
To talk, yeah.
And it seems like a small thing, but like how many times in the newsroom like, there's this in the
Pizza,
newsroom, there's
everybody's
that.
friends.
And like that seems like a small thing you could do. Also, I would like to say this coming from someone who has notoriously been not so like bubbly and friendly in the workplace. A hello goes a long way. And I learned that the hard way. And I learned that was something I had to humble myself, because it really is true. Like if you go stone face, and I was just tired, to be honest with everyone. I apologize to those people I didn't say hi to. But if you're like me and you're reformed, a hello and compliments go a long way to start a conversation. Just knowing that you're an open vessel for people to talk to.
Yeah.
If you're searching for a work bestie, if you want to be a loner, My hat's off to you as well.
And I think if companies just have spaces, because like some people are remote, some people are half hybrid, whatever it is. But if there's actually space that you can go into if you want to, please don't force anybody to go back to work. Like that's another conversation. But
well, I was going to say scheduling needs to be flexible. Sorry.
I do agree with that. But honestly, if I have the flexibility, I will tell someone like, meet me here.
Yeah.
Like, we'll go to work together, even if we're working on a project or we just want to like laugh a little bit before, like meet early. Like if those spaces are available, I think people will take advantage of them. And
Agreed.
And it's to the benefit of the company, because everything we've said so far shows you that the stronger people have those bonds in the workplace, the better they're going to do, which is going to make you a better company, which is going to make you more money. So it's important for people to, or companies to look at their employees and try to foster those friendships.
All right. So our Dear FQ today is very similar to what we're talking about.
Okay.
I don't want to say I know what side you're going to be on, but let's just read.
You probably do.
Let's read the Dear FQ. Dear FQ, why do so many workplaces blur the line between colleagues and friends? The pressure to perform socially can feel just as heavy as the pressure to perform at work. Shouldn't we be creating space for different styles of connection?
There should be different avenues where people can meet each other. But I think if you are someone who does not like the social and does not like, you know, the employee resource groups and doesn't like the hype, there's probably one other person like you. And maybe
correct.
talk to that person in the corner. Like, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, the research is clear that having someone in the workplace is going to benefit you. Even if you're not a social person, even if you're not a social butterfly, nobody says you have to be friends with everybody. But the statistics do show that that even that one person will help you. And so I don't think it's a bad thing to not necessarily, you don't have to, you know, bring out your pom-poms, but maybe find that one other person in the corner that's like, can we go now? And go with them.
I think it comes as no surprise. I'm not necessarily the rah-rah when it comes to the workplace. I think, first of all, you ain't got to make friends. If you just want to come to work and do your job and leave, that is your prerogative. You do not have to. So if you're like, hey, I'm cool with my outside social group, that's fine. Like I said, just don't be rude. I think that companies do too much to try to get this, like, the line I hate the most.
We're a family.
We're a family.
I actually do hate that.
No, I have siblings and parents.
I don't want to be your family.
I'm good on this extra family. One I have stresses me out enough. I think that type of thing can be kind of toxic and overdone. So I do agree that, like, I don't know why they're blurring that. I think in their minds, they think, oh, we're doing a good thing. Like if we all rah-rah, woo-woo together, some people don't like that. So yes, they should be creating different styles of connection and don't feel obligated or forced, because that's just going to add more stress to your life. Yeah. Go to what you want to go to. Have your one or two friends, and that's perfectly fine and okay. Don't feel guilty that you're not this overly social person. Because at the end of the day, and like this is old school for me, it's still work.
It's still work.
Like you leave, you quit, they're going to fill your spot with some other friendly person.
Probably very quickly.
Yes.
And I would also say too that if you are the person that is the social butterfly, don't be too quick to write off or judge people who aren't the same and who don't want to talk to you.
I felt
like,
that.
Yeah, no, it's the same thing as my friend who said I was her coworker. Like, you know what I mean? Don't be quick to like write that person off and be like, well, she doesn't really consider me a friend, so I'm not going to talk to her in the workplace and like whatever. Just recognize that people are at different stages and operate differently. That's been important for me to figure out. Do I get it? No. I think you should be not getting it. But
no, I'm that person, and I feel like you do get a bad rap of like, she's a biatch. And I'm like, maybe. I don't know. I just feel like I'm here to work, and then sometimes that gets blurred as like, you're not a nice person.
Yeah. But I think it's on us the social butterflies, to also not do that to people, because there's no rule that says like you have to be, you know, workplace, you know, cheerleader number one.
Yeah,
so,
that's true. I agree with that. So hopefully that was
don't go
helpful. Just like get rid of the guilt of not being this person that's like extra gregarious when it comes to work, because like it's still work. Okay, I think we've covered the levels of work besties, how we met ours. I do want to say before, and maybe you too, like if I didn't mention you, that doesn't mean we're not work besties. Like there's probably people that I forgot, but I love you. And in my life, if you know, you know. You're not thinking, oh, she didn't say my name. You know that if I forgot, I really am genuinely sorry.
Well, my work besties know I have ADHD, so I probably will forget. So
It's like impossible for Rae to list all 30 of her
all
work
35
besties.
of my work besties in all 3 countries that I had like
She
lived
like
in
goes through
and,
the company like directory.
like
Paul.
this girl, this one.
Today, I think we like nailed it. I think you should like, if you have the opportunity,
Yeah.
go out to coffee with your work bestie.
Yeah. And share your stories with us on like how you met your work bestie situations. If you have like a work bestie, like, you know, crazy story, like let us know. The tea is welcome. Always.
Thank you guys so much for joining us here today. I'm Natalie Lizarraga.
And I'm Rae Williams.
Broadlines is a production of the Female Quotient.
And it's filmed and recorded in Los Angeles, California.